It's my pleasure to host co-founder of Farcana, Islam, on the podcast today. Islam, how are you doing today?
Hello. I'm good. Thanks for having me, Mehdi.
Congratulations on a successful launch of Farcana. Achieving a 1 billion FDV on TG is a big achievement.
Thank you so much.
So, Islam, can you tell me more about the big vision of Farcana from a Web3 perspective?
Yeah, exactly. So we from the beginning was facing the challenge, like for ourselves from the start. It was very simple challenge where you have in a regular gaming world a lot of people, a lot of like large player base who is putting the efforts, the time, and improving their skills into the game, but still not getting any value out of it. And very limited people actually have access to that. So this is exactly what we want to change in Farcana, where we do believe that you can actually slowly increase the percentage and distribution in the way that your main like a core player base gonna have good value out of the skills and time they are spending in the game, which is very important actually.
So, Islam, when we met 2 years ago, you mentioned you were telling me about your Web3 perspective on how Farcana is adopting Web3 tools to compete with AAA games. Can you tell our audience a little bit about your big picture vision of Farcana from a Web3 perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, from the beginning, Farcana has very kind of like a simple to understand challenge, but very hard to face actually. The story is very simple. You have competitive gaming field where you have a lot of tactical PvP competitive games, and in that games you have very limited people who is the best players in the world who actually can extract some value out of their skills and time that they spent in the game. And in Farcana, our challenge is to change that. We want to have more people getting value out of it, meaning first of all, you have mid-core players in any game that is actually giving the biggest value to any game, but they they are, I would say, the fundamental of any game studio and any game content, but still they're not getting any value out of it. So in Farcana, we want to have much larger player base, especially the mid-core base, who's getting a value out of the game in the way of like a Bitcoin prices, first of all, because we believed from the beginning that only in the Web3 space you actually can change that using Web3 mechanics. And how does it work is in our game, they're going to be rewarded by Bitcoin prices because we believe Bitcoin is a digital gold. And there is nothing more reliable than Bitcoin, even for Web2 players. And it's quite understandable. So from the beginning, we want to use Bitcoin rewards to have a significantly larger amount of players getting value out of their skills and time they spend in the game.
Absolutely. And I think we also had a discussion about, I think this discussion was slightly later, let's say 9 months ago, regarding digital property rights and ownership. And you saw that as one of the challenges with Web2 as well. Can you elaborate how you guys are tackling that?
Yeah, for sure. That's actually the second part. And first part cannot be resolved without the second part,
Yes.
And again, we're facing it again that these kind of issues can be solved only through Web3 tech, only through Web3 economy. So how do we face that? And what's the issue overall is that in the games, actually, overall, I would say overall internet, we have now transition from Web2 to Web3 because the regular Web2 is, I would say, is a big monopoly. Is a big monopoly in the whole internet, which is like social platforms, messages, whatever it is. Like in case of the data extraction and value that a company is getting from the user, but not giving it back. So the gaming side has the same structure. So now we're transitioning from the regular gaming, the ones that we established in the 20, 30 years, to Web3 gaming. And the main point is the ownership, of course, because in the current games, you cannot actually own the things that you earn in the game, meaning the skins, the characters, whatever it is in the game, you cannot actually really truly own it, because at some point where you have done something wrong, meaning it can be violating rules, it can be misconceptions as well, where after some actions you're getting kind of your skin getting removed.
Yes.
The good example of it, I really want to mention that.
Yes,
actually.
please go ahead.
Good example of it, around half a year ago, there was a kind of a big case, right? So in Call of Duty, the big game, one of the best in the world, you had a big gaming creator who has done a lot of efforts to kind of spread the game and help the game studio to have more awareness and more players. So it was streaming. He has a huge user base, community, and for all these efforts, obviously he has been rewarded. He has his own skin in the game, which was quite cool skin, etc. But the thing is, at some point, he did some comment, whatever, whenever, etc. Which is, we don't want to go deep into that. But the thing is, after such actions, in a 24 hours, his skin gets removed. So first action against the creator was removing his skin, meaning he doesn't own it. After such a long journey and such a big value that he put into it. And that was perfect example what exactly Web3 games trying to solve. Meaning in Farcana, if you have skin or a character or a gun that you earned by your skill and time you're spending, you truly own it. No one will ever be able to remove it from you because it is your asset. That's what we're actually trying to change. Because when people spending like so much time into something and putting so much energy into it, it is just a wrong that, at some point someone can just decide and remove it from it. So Web3 is always about freedom and gaming, just, playing his part of it. So we're just transitioning it, and Farcana wants to be a big part of this volume.
Yeah, so TLDR for audience is Farcana wants to kind of financialize fun for people who have the skills, and also if they have worked really hard, allowing them to own assets. It takes me to a very good visual Yad typically presents is those economies that have strong digital property rights, their economies are far bigger than those countries that do not have good or strong digital property rights. So the mental model here for audiences, for instance, if you're thinking about Call of Duty, maybe Call of Duty, if it did IPO, just an example is $2 billion FTV. But since it doesn't have digital property rights, and let's say we have games, AAA games, which have digital property rights, these games have the potential to do really well because then you have network effects from outside that can come in. So for example, some other games can take the skin and develop games and IP on top of that, and that accrues value back
Additional
to Farcana.
value.
And additional value to the gamers and NFT holders.
Absolutely.
So on top of that, Islam, we had this conversation around how with AAA games, gamers do not have ability or any say in the game. So for example, if I want to not get a map removed, so let's say if a developer wants to remove the map or a character, that happens a lot with Apex Legend. I heard that they removed few things. One of the things that you are trying to solve with Farcana is true gamers having the ability to take participation in the roadmap over the period of time in terms of what Farcana team can work on. Can you elaborate a little bit on this for our audience?
Absolutely. Look, that's a very good point actually, because this is when I say about Web3, right? When we talk about the ownership, what does it mean in the core of it? Of course, it's a freedom. It means actually each participant of the ecosystem can decide things, can have his voice, can have his choice. So with that part you mentioned, it is very important. Look, even with Web2 gaming, right? Even with, I would say the good example of it is a Fortnite. Fortnite is an amazing game, right? So where they transitioned after a years of success, after a years of endless collaborations with a different IPs, with a different like a movies, whatever it is, right? So after all of the years of that, they ended up like the end transition of the game was, okay, now we ran out of ideas. Now we'll just put the UGC part and you decide whatever content you want. So it's even almost seems like, even though it's very successful, obviously there's no doubts in that, but it was like initially some group of people trying to decide always what will be the best.
Yes.
And then after endless and successful actually decisions, they ended up again at the same point where they say, okay, now it's enough for us. You just decide whatever you want. So with Farcana, we want to kind of emphasize that factor. Meaning, when you have at some point the AAA game, when it comes to the big milestone of having kind of made it, meaning
maturity.
you have maturity, yeah, when you have like 1,000,000 players, 2,000,000 players, whatever it is, it's a different numbers for any game. But the thing is, when you have maturity, like from 100 people or 200 people, even the biggest experts in the world, who is at the end of the day still trying to guess or predict what they will like. So from that point, you just transitions and says, okay, we have strong player base who's loyal, who's putting the time, effort, skills into the game. Why will no one let decide to you? So kind of hint on it, you can have a console, maybe you can have a DAO, right? A little bit later, where you have a loyal part of your audience.
I think we'll explore this in a bit. We'll come back to this in a bit. So are you hinting sort of a progressive decentralization? That's the hint I'm getting, but I want to explore this further. So I'll come back on this point. I want to go back now to Web 2. So we have spoken a bit on Web 3, but I want our Web 2 audience to know what you guys are also building from a differentiation standpoint. So we have always had this discussion. You feel there are issues with AAA games and issues with Overwatch in particular. What are some of those issues that Farcana is trying to tackle from a Web 2 gaming perspective?
Yeah, sure. First of all, we always try to tell that it's not like we're trying to point the big issues, but still as a game studio, as a young game studio, as an indie game studio, you always try to challenge, first of all, of course, not like kind of mid-success games or kind of, some games that have short-term success, but you're always targeting big titles that made it, right, actually. So that's why we always talk about Overwatch, because Overwatch, first of all, I always want to mention, is a good example for us. Same as Valorant. These games are titles, right? So it's games that will look up into, like, to them from the positive side. But as you mentioned, we also see opportunities for us as a game that we may challenge and try to challenge and try to fix. So this is actually very important, as you said, for the players, right?
Yes.
So Farcana is a 4 versus 4 close combat team arena shooter. So we have some kind of similar to Overwatch, like a small map with like different gameplay, meaning different targets. So the initial is a take point, then defend point, like change of the teams. But in this gameplay, what we're trying to change. So in Overwatch, let's say you have 5 versus 5, PvP mode, where you have each hero, they have their own abilities, but the main thing is you have one actually big hero, very big guy really, which called tank. Yeah. Like in any, yeah, like quite big, like both of us. Who eats a lot, I would say. So that's a tank role in any ability shooters, right? So tank roles always has a big, big impact to the gameplay. But with Overwatch, we clearly have seen that the impact is overbalanced, meaning you have a big character who's like tough to kill, who has significant damage, and only disadvantage that he have is like it's just a little bit slow. But still, the gameplay forces you to play around this character, meaning all 4 other teammates are always around it and deciding making decisions and movements from the point of what tank doing, meaning the gameplay comes too tank-centric. So like when you have it, it looks fun, it looks okay, but for the esports side, for the competitive side, it is not the best decision you can have because your gameplay is too boring. You have only few tactics to play, and esport players, they don't like it.
Yeah, I'm going to double tap on that, especially if a game who is building competitive shooter which has Bitcoin rewards, you don't want to skew the gameplay action, right? Because people who will select tank all the time will have a higher probability of dominating the gameplay. And especially if you are thinking along the lines of rewarding people for their skills, you're not rewarding them for skills, you're rewarding them for tank, right? So at TLDR, if you guys are ahead of the time in terms of having Bitcoin rewards, you're already thinking about how to make it fair. And this is also, in a very novel way, a very Web3 ethos that you want to make sure the gameplay is fair from a competitive like standpoint. So the rewards that get distributed is not skewed because of character's ability.
Exactly. And more than this, I want to highlight one small thing as well. So there is a lot of details like this that you're working on in case of the gameplay. But one major thing that we also want to kind of not change, but have a fresh breeze into the hero shooter, like ability shooters, right?
Yeah.
So what the difference is, you have in ability shooters usually a character who has a gun, obviously, and the main gameplay is a gunplay, right? So you need to eliminate the enemy, like be skillful, be more fast, etc. So with that, you have abilities, and abilities usually supposed to support your gunplay in any ability game.
Yep.
And even the new ones that coming, we still haven't seen any fresh breeze on the gameplay itself, in the combat gameplay itself. So the same thing, you have gunplay, abilities supposed to help you. But in Farcana, we're trying to make it in the way that abilities will define your shooting. Meaning in the close combat, if you use your abilities in the good timing, in a nice way, meaning you're helping not only yourself, but the team as well, right? So your abilities have impact on your teammates, they're helping them, supporting them. And at the same time, if you're countering, let's say, at the good moment, the abilities and ability usage of your enemy, then it creates effect on your gun, and actually you have bigger damage on your gun, which gives you actually quite mobile vibes. So we're trying to be first person shooter that actually has a part of mobile gameplay, like League of Legends, like Dota 2, right? So that should be something new in the hero abilities, and really we're looking forward to that. It's a big challenge, obviously, but with that kind of fresh take on the gameplay, we always, we hope it will work out very well.
Interesting. It's very interesting. I love the energy when a founder is trying to do novel things, not only on gameplay side, but also putting crypto stuff on the gameplay, and also thinking deeply about the game progression, about all of these things. And when it ties in together, there's interesting things that happen. So I really enjoyed this conversation, Islam, regarding how you guys are thinking, both from Web3 perspective as well as Web 2 perspective. I want to shift gears a bit. I want to discuss something which is on top of everybody's mind, which is airdrop. Airdrop, and why didn't the airdrop happen at TG? What's your take on this?
That's a pain. But first of all, look, our community has grown very fast.
Yes.
It's actually doubled, tripled at the last few months.
Oh, more than that. You started with 40,000 Twitter, and now it's 250, 260. So it's 5-6x.
So which is very good, very positive, and we truly, sincerely grateful for our community to being there, to supporting us. The thing is, there is always a lot of different metas on our space, right? And you always as well trying to, as you said, you always as a founder trying to do something new, something fresh, something outstanding. That's the goal of each company, right? So that's what we try to do as well. But once we announce the airdrop, let's say, right, the most hot topic, right, what we have faced is that there was a too much demand, demand on the what is the percentage, like on the short term kind of calculations or short term like values that people trying to extract.
Okay.
So after we have seen that, we actually decided that we need to challenge this and try to risk it, right? Risking it meaning we need to try to question this, and we need to.
So when you're saying question this, you're saying questioning the fact that why airdrops happen at the same day as the token get listed on exchanges. You're trying to question that phenomena as well, right?
Exactly. Why it always should happen on TGE?
It can happen.
Like it is not a rule, right? So someone would say it is a standard of Web3, but as I love to say always, there is no standards in Web3. That's why it is a Web3. It's a freedom of the choice, right?
Yes.
So that's why we're trying to experiment.
Yes.
And say why we not change that. Why we not wait after TGE, do it within the 2 weeks after TGE, maybe other project will do it after 2 months of the TGE, meaning once you experiment this, you also can see who is the diamond hands, who is
Ah.
the exactly, who is the like a loyal community, who is
Yeah.
there to support your project, right?
Yeah.
So that is our goal in that case, and we really want to see the people who is purely sincerely want to support the project.
Sticky user.
Sticking, yeah, sticky
Sticky
users, right? So that was the initial idea, and the experiment, I would say, is still ongoing.
Yes.
We can say it is successful or not a little bit later stage once it's done, but for sure it never means that airdrop will not happen, right? That's the main
Not
key
financial
here.
advice. Not financial advice. You hear it. You heard it over here as well. Airdrop will happen, but there is no timeline to this because you want to make sure the diamond hands get rewarded, and you're experimenting with something in Web3 where you wanted to see what is the result of this. So that's my TLDR on this conversation.
Almost. I would say we as a Farcana already announced that it will happen within the 2 weeks, which is already started.
Yes.
So it's very soon. Not financial advice, but
never
still,
is.
But still, yes, exactly. So it's an experiment, and I think a lot of other companies should do it as well.
Excellent. I also wanted to double click on the point that what happens in Web3 is people typically give you the percentage. Oh, I'm going to have X percentage of airdrop. But in your case, you have been very smart about this. Like you haven't given any percentage yet, even though we'll discuss your ecosystem fund, which is massive in a moment. So my take, at least, maybe I'm biased because I know you. My take is you want to kind of phase it out into different phases and reward different actions and different holders over the period of time rather than being short term in your nature. So what's your take on this? Is that one of the reasons why you haven't given out percentage, because you want to reward the community over the period of time and not let the speculator speculate on a short term horizon and want to phase it with different milestone and achievements? Farcana
Absolutely. Phased approach from the day one, right? So what does it mean? It's not only we understood that there is a different category of the community, right? So there are some communities that would like to put the efforts, play the game, and be the part of the ecosystem, as well as hold your NFTs or assets, which is amazing, right? So that's a gold part of the community, I would say. But there's also people who's supporting you, who's loyal to you, who's sticking with the project, but they do not have time or like resources to play the game, right? They may be founders of other projects or like just a busy people, right? So which is absolutely understandable as well. But from the day one, it is phase approach to see who is sticking with the project, who is supporting it, and not only that, if like with the percentage, right? What happens if, let's say, we would announce that exactly number? We are in the almost February, right? 2024 at some stage of Farcana. So if we, again, as we discussed, limited group of people, even the founders, whatever it is, right? Limited group of people decide now what will be happening in the 2 years with the exact percentage of the airdrop, there are two things going to happen. A community, different people.
It goes again the ethos of decentralization.
Exactly.
If a community
decentralization.
Yes.
Right?
So if the founder is deciding 50% airdrop, I'm just giving an example, not financial advice. Then
bad example.
Very, very bad example. Let's say few percentage. I won't specify the number. The team decide we'll do an airdrop few percentage today, and let's say when we achieve progressive decentralization, when we achieve a DAO, we are taking away the tokens they have to make decisions regarding all of these things.
Exactly, because you already decided it 2 years ago on the different stage of the project, when maybe you don't have a right in face of the future holders or future DAO to do that, right? So at the same time, what it gives you, participant, you're gonna sit and calculate the straight revenue like that he may get from the different asset for the year ahead. So they're gonna do 2 phases. I'm gonna get this, that. So the main motivation comes, I calculated this what I'm gonna get. But people don't understand. What if we announced some percentage. In the way while we're doing it, the game is 10 times bigger. We have million players. It changed everything, right? So you can do more airdrop, less airdrop. You can actually give it to the DAO to decide, right?
Yeah.
So that's the right approach with it.
So TLDR is you want to reward your community, you love your community, but you want to be dynamic with your approach and kind of link it with the progression of the game and progression of the decentralization.
Absolutely. Also, I want to highlight what does it mean, right? AAA games, we mentioned, right? The high level games. What was always the main bottleneck, which is perfectly makes sense, again, perfectly makes sense, but still it is quite old standard. When you have a game developers who deciding everything, who's close circle of like what's going on till the end product is ready, right? So in our case, we want to be one of the first open game studios that actually have participation of the community on the each stage where we actually open with what we are doing, right? So that's the main approach here, and that's what I think should be changed in the nice way, right? Of course, we're not saying we'll let decide you let decide all the community who's not the game developers what's gonna happen with the content, but you can have as we said, phased approach, where you have first phase and you participate, like giving your feedback, playtest. The second stage, the third stage, when the game is mature, you just giving up.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Again, not financial advice. For example, I'm speaking hypotheticals, right? So let's say Farcana IP becomes big. There are 30 games out there, and you guys decide to maybe launch a L2 on Polygon or Bitcoin or whatever.
Exactly.
So when you launch a L2, for instance, people would want, like, you want to incentivize them to come to your L2, maybe use the decks, maybe use multiple games. And for that, you might need to have arsenal, right? But if you make that decision right now, if you give out all your airdrops right now, then you won't have the arsenal to play the long-term game. So I think that's what is making sense to me. It's kind of similar to the fact that, let's say, this is what Blur did actually, right? So OpenSea didn't have airdrop. Blur did massive amounts of airdrop. But what they did was they phased it out. And the reasoning of the phase is, as they were coming closer to product market fit, as they were trying to take market share away from OpenSea, the level of aggression increased. So as you're coming closer to product market fit, you want to use your airdrop for acquiring customer, like cost of customer acquisition.
Exactly.
So for me, I think there's a lot of nuances in this. I think in terms of a normal distribution of people, crypto IQ people, I think you're trying to cater to all the distribution, which is like smarter approach of product market fit, longer term roadmap. In the middle, you have your NFT holders. You want to satisfy them, but then you also have your crypto degen. So you're trying to like cater to all of the normal distribution of crypto folks, rather than just one-off retrospective airdrop farmers.
Yes.
So I think from a tokenomics analyst standpoint, this makes total sense. And yeah, I think we should move on from here. So let's go ahead. Another thing crypto Twitter is buzzing about is your ecosystem fund. Let's explore that. Islam.
More than this, I would say our community want to see tokenomics, which of course is going to happen. So we're going to, first of all, announce the tokenomics. And in tokenomics, we have around half of the total supply going to ecosystem fund. And that is the only category that have some unlocks. So this is what we need to, go through. And I don't think there will be better person to do that than someone who actually designed it. So Mehdi, please.
So
Counter question.
So you're checking the founder here, right? So he's happy to be a guest, but he's also happy to host, right? So he's pushing the mantle to me. So I think the idea with ecosystem is it's pretty large. Like, we're not just thinking along the lines of having just investors or advisor. We want to make Farcana IP a global phenomena and make it from a very bottom-up approach. So the way we are thinking about treasury is very, very simple. You have your big treasury. Now, for example, Farcana has $1 billion valuation, and 50% of the valuation sits in treasury. So the purpose of treasury is to, again, expand the IP of Farcana. So if you see the diagram that's posted, you'll see their inflows and their outflows. First thing first, you will have your 50% tokens inside that treasury from day one, which will be used for enhancement of Farcana IP. So things like buyback of NFTs, buyback of tokens, ecosystem fronts and grants that uses Farcana IP. You also have your marketing and branding. You might have like a media. You might have an esports organization that Farcana wants to kind of sponsor. You'll also have your community incentive, whether that's Bitcoin prize pool, whether that's airdrop, and also IP expansion. So, for example, if Farcana wants to produce any kind of media and content, that needs to come from somewhere. And the approach of team is the best way to beat mammoths of AAA gaming, which have funding of $400-500 million, is do it through community. And that's where ecosystem treasury comes in. And it's also very sustainable. It's not like everything within the treasury will be used. What will happen is all the mechanisms we described, let's say brand marketing, ecosystem funds, grants, token buyback, community incentive, all of this will increase the demand for Farcana, which in turn means the valuation of the treasury increases, and we can go and do all of these things appropriately. To make the economy more circular and also more sustainable, we'll have different sinks of the token, either on dollar terms or token terms, that comes back to the treasury. So things like tournament passes or tournament card or season passes or royalty from NFTs may or may not come. For example, NFTs like, let's say, nodes and things like that, gas fees, all of these things, we have like big, massive, ambitious plan, may or may not happen. But those things, those revenue sources that Farcana earns, they want to give it back to the community. The best way to do it is put it back into ecosystem treasury and use that ecosystem to develop and make this a big success. So initially, the plan was similar to ApeCoin and Arbitrum, where not ApeCoin but Arbitrum, that we have a council, they operate this and help Farcana expand, but progressive decentralization over the period of time where there will be DAO. We'll double tap on this. I think community should hear this from you, but that's in essence what we want to do. But another interesting thing is, if we do ecosystem grants and funds and start up new casual games using Farcana IP, those games and those content can make revenue, and those revenue can again go back to the treasury. Or these games can do airdrop. So similar to how Celestia for political alignment, economic alignment, to make to kind of strengthen the network effects, gives airdrop to the community. So the idea is the stakers who basically govern the treasury over the period of time, they will also have the ability to get airdrops from all of these partnerships and all of these IP expansion that we do. So that's the grand vision. You can visualize it in your head. You can also see the chart above.
Exactly. That is a perfect point, because look, I still think bias, for example, right? Bias community is a very good example how it has been kind of utilized. The Arbitrum Foundation is perfect example as well, where you have like a council that is slowly transitioning to the DAO with the maturity of the project. So it is very good examples. And when you're talking about IP creation, right? So people, that is actually also part of what we talked previously, right? Yes. About the AAA games being like closed entities, who's concentrated only at the end content, who's like all decisions made internally. So what we're talking about here, because of the Web3 and because of the opportunities that Web3 may give you and community can give you, you can actually use in the way, because while you're creating a AAA game, it is a lot of time, right? It's a years of time. So while it's happening, of course, you're obviously working on your main IP, the narrative, the story, your IP, right? The heroes, their own stories. You may have animation kind of a movies, right? The series of the movies about your IP. But other than that, in the whale, while you are doing it, there is another companies, startups, partners who want to participate, who actually like it. And while you're even doing it, not even after you got some big milestone, but while you're doing it, they want to participate in that. They like your IP. They want to be part of it and want to create another products around it, which can be casual games, which can be let's say PFP collection, right? Someone can do it, or like you may have a partnership with Azuki or a lot of other collections, right? Who want to have kind of a collaboration between the IPs. So all of this gives you a lot of opportunities to have Web3 approach, more freedom approach. So that's, I would say, the TLDR.
So TLDR over here, just to summarize it for our audience, is that we have a AAA game ready. Take that IP, use the massive ecosystem treasury we have and go after AAA mammoths and expand the IP into every nook and corner of Web 2 and Web 3 world.
Perfect.
Okay. So we did mention DAO, like you're tiptoeing around DAO. So for our audience, I think some clarity there will be interesting. We also mentioned a little bit about progressive decentralization. So let's just double tap on how you're thinking. Again, nothing over here is financial advice or done and dusted in paper. We're still exploring, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So how is the Farcana team thinking? I'm again thinking. I emphasize thinking about DAOs.
Exactly. With my pleasure. So I really love that part because, look, we have the good part about our stage is that you already have some experience to learn from different companies and IPs who tried to do this. So what we have learned is in the Web3 space, you have so far mostly one-sided experience with DAO, where DAO participants actually vote and participate in ecosystem from financial upwards and like upsides, right? So from financial incentives, they're thinking, okay, what will give me the best financial upside? And that's how it happens. And that has been kind of a bottleneck as well. It's good and bad at the same time, as everything, right? You always has pros and cons. And with that, companies and IPs struggled a little bit, where sometimes you need to give up, let's say, short-term financial upside to have long-term success and to create something, to do something. But after the voting, sometimes happens that it's not happening because let's say the holders are a little bit aware, the market conditions is not good. So that is one part of the DAOs that we know. But there also has been very successful cases where actually the DAO is like progressed with the years.
Progressive decentralization.
Yeah, progressive decentralization, right? So when it actually worked out very well, and IP is actually 10 times bigger than it was at the beginning. So what we want to do here is to use both of it. So we want to have at some point a DAO who is a DAO of the holders of the main assets, who's voting for, let's say, mainly for the topics that have financial upside or downside in the future, right? So, but at the same time, we will have a DAO, a council, right, of the most active players. So when I was starting, I explained about the most important thing, that pretty much all the titles have mid-core gaming audience, which is not necessarily the biggest audience, but which is the most valuable audience, who put most of the time, most of the energy, skills, and even financial value to the titles, to the games, but not getting anything out of it. So Farcana not only trying to change it and give them value, but at the mature point, we want to switch to the DAO of the most active users, players, who are gonna be deciding on the content, right? So as I mentioned, so these people, after some milestone of your IP, you actually can give to the biggest core of your product, player core, right? Give a freedom to decide what is the next content, what you want developers to develop next, and what you want to get next. So these players gonna decide. These DAO gonna decide on both things, on financial
and the
future
game content.
and the game content, which is more important.
Yeah. So I think let me just summarize it for our audience. So over here, there's a lot of nuance. Like, one of the issues with DAO is right now it's very simple. Just for governance, your token utility is like a meme. You just use it for governance. But over here, we're thinking deeply about governance. What Slam just described is a dual structure of a DAO. So within a DAO, you'll have folks that can, let's say, vote on financial decision, ecosystem grants, and IP over the period of time, like after a few years when the product is mature. And then you'll also have a structure of DAO where active gamers would have the ability to decide on things like game characters, maps, things like that. And the voting structure of that will also be different. Like these are some of the, like, I'm going to leak some alpha in terms of discussions we're having. Nothing here is finalized. So they're thinking along the lines of, let's say, the gamers, we have the core of the gamers having innovative governance structure with, let's say, quadratic voting and soul-bound tokens and things like that. Again, we are again exploring this and thinking deeply about this. So that's the nuanced approach towards the DAO, and this DAO will happen over the period of time, not at day one. At day one, I think we are thinking along the lines of a council member, similar to Arbitrum, Please
Yes,
expand on
exactly. So, what does it mean, council member, right? So, at the beginning, when you only start your long journey onto it, you want to have very respected and very experienced people and council of like that kind of people who gonna decide on different categories where the game content should go, where the for example, for Farcana, as I said, we're like competitive game, right? That's our kind of approach and the audience that we're looking for. So what is better for such a game than to have esports console where you have huge names, huge people who actually has amazing experience in their life, who's the founders of biggest esport teams, who is actually ex biggest esport players, who is a world champions, right? So these people can decide how you should, like, what approach you should have to build your own esport division, to build your competitive player base, what they love, what they like, what they not, and then vote on that with like some amount of people who has different experience. Same thing with, as we said, with the game content, right? So I think that will be one of the best ways to do it, and we are strongly working on that actually.
Okay, this makes sense. I think we discussed ecosystem funds. So I want to revisit that topic. And given that we have set the stage for DAOs, ecosystem, airdrop, I think I have to just make sure our audience is aware is now regarding token value accrual. Now this becomes very interesting. So you can use the token for in-game utility, like buying things. But now the essence over here is it's an ecosystem play. It's not just one game play. Like you can still use the token and have fun in the game. You're financializing the fun part. They can also earn Bitcoin prizes if they're really competitive. But the main gist is the way the token accrues value is there's a grand vision. The grand vision is there's an ecosystem. Ecosystem deploys token for different initiatives, brand, marketing, IP creation, more games, bigger ecosystem. And that means more demand for the token.
Infrastructure in the future,
again,
right?
Infrastructure, not financial advice.
Small hint.
So small hint. There's L2, L3, whatever. Yeah, and because of that, there's a massive demand that comes through. As the demand increases, the power of the ecosystem fund increases. As the power of ecosystem fund increases, you can do this initiatives even more, and there is a circular economy with strong flywheel.
Yes.
So there is dual utility. You have this ecosystem that's exploring, and then you'll have in-game utility. And when you combine these together, I think that's where the crypto Twitter is unclear about what is the token utility. Token utility is in-game utility plus the ecosystem flywheel that you guys
exactly.
are designing.
And also important to mention the lock, right? So we have in tokenomics, most of the categories are locked. What does it say about us? So we have respectfully very big partners who supporting us.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the tokenomics here, just for the reference. I actually helped Islam brainstorm this and was very strict about this. So over here, we have no investor unlock. So we're thinking long term here. Investor have 6-month cliff and 18-month vesting. After that, we have ecosystem fund that will be used for IP creation from bottom up perspective and expanding of the ecosystem. That is by far more than 50% is given out, more than 50, not just 50, more than 50% used for those initiatives. And there's a 3 years vesting for that. So over the period of 3 years, you'll see all of these development, game development, marketing, and all of those things. And then you have your advisors and team. All of these are also locked. So they do not get the token anytime soon, and gives the ecosystem enough breathing power and leeway to build the ecosystem. So when people are like, okay, the tokenomics, it just doesn't make sense because everyone is locked. We are giving them enough breathing space to kind of the ecosystem to emerge. So the whole idea is ecosystem.
Exactly. So you mentioned the team, and team is the very last category here that getting any unlock, which is makes sense, and that was initial approach from the day one. But the thing is, not only that, I think people should think for the investor side, right? For the investor side, actually, our investors, our partners, our backers, they are agreed on this to have a lock, to have a longer vesting. One thing is, obviously, if you have a right approach and you have a big lock on the team, Okay, but when your investors also locked, what does it mean? It means even they supporting you in your community first approach. So you have some amount of time to build the IP, to use the ecosystem, to have faster development, better development, to deliver the first version of the game with token integration, right? To have first utilities of your token already happening at some levels, right? So that is the approach from the day one. I think this actually creates a unique opportunity for anyone who wants to support project.
For retail audience
Yes.
that want decentralization, that wants to become part of the community.
Exactly.
So basically
Exactly.
what Slam is highlighting over here is this is not a token just for VCs and team. You have a retail and community approach
Yes,
first.
yes.
And that's the reason why the community has access to the tokens, while investors and investors team, all of them are longer cliffs and
Exactly.
Okay.
While you were building your product and like everything that may help to the assets like this, right? To grow a years. You were building it 2 years, right? Around 2 years to launch the products
Yes.
and still give opportunity to retail. So
Yes.
and even the investors are agreed on that because everyone, like in case of the Farcana, everyone wants to
Yes.
ecosystem to grow.
Yes.
Ecosystem
And
of
also,
Web3 to
like
grow.
this is
So-
very important. So AAA games do not get developed in 2 years. It takes 3 to 4 years, right? Minimum.
Yes.
And you guys
exactly.
already have a very good product ready.
Exactly.
But you
yes.
want more time to not only build that product, but just expand IP again to every nook and
Yes,
corner of
exactly. And also have right, not just straight first trial that for any company can be not the best practice when you have like a first iteration of your game, especially with token integration, which is a very important part. You have big blockchain tech part here. You have also you need to make sure that your security is in the place, especially as you mentioned when you have financial incentives in the games. So for that part, we just wanted to have a safe time to build this, to try this, to have interactions with this, and that's how it will work.
And
out
also
in
from
the best way.
tokenomics standpoint, it makes sense. Like I do tokenomics, live, breathe tokenomics. One of the concerns a lot of projects have is you have very aggressive unlocks, very aggressive vesting, and you do not give token as well as the product enough breathing time to survive. And let's say within few months, because of those aggressive unlocks, the token doesn't do well. The ecosystem collapses. The
Doesn't
idea
do
of
well.
ecosystem from a
Exactly.
community perspective collapses. So your rationale is the reason why there's longer cliffs and vesting is to allow the ecosystem to flourish and allow retail to participate and be part of this project.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So Slam, I'm not gonna ask you about when airdrop, but we are reaching the last segment of the podcast. So I do want to ask, before we jump into the rapid fire round, what are your last words for NFT holders, your token holders, and potentially your ordinal minters?
That's a good question. When I drop. Okay, I'm gonna address the message actually to our holders. First of all, guys, thank you so much for being part of our ecosystem, part of our community, for pushing hard, and yes, of course, holding our assets. The first ever collection of Farcana, which is, you need to remember, this is first collection of Farcana. It is very important. It is very high of value. So first of all, a lot of things are upcoming. Be patient. Still, I'm saying it. Be patient. Believe in us. It's just the first step. We have very big things upcoming, and the ecosystem, right? Also keep in mind that when we talk about IP creation, the ecosystem around Farcana, all of this gonna bring new value and everyone gonna make it. So for the ordinals, which is also quite important, I want to highlight again, it is only first step into the ordinals ecosystem, into the big Bitcoin ecosystem. So I am very excited of what coming after. Be patient again, and we definitely will love what is coming.
So Slam, we talked a lot about Farcana. I think our audience should also know a little bit about you on a personal level. So I'm going to do a very, very, very simple rapid fire round.
Yep.
And I think our audience is going to enjoy this.
Yep.
So Slam, blue ocean or red ocean?
Blue ocean. I would say.
Highest quality game or strongest network effects?
Oh, that's a difficult one. That's a difficult one, but I would say, of course, strongest network effect.
Your favorite Web2 game?
There is no competition at all. It is a Counter-Strike, of course, because I'm a Counter-Strike player from day one, actually. So,
what's your favorite Web3 game apart from Farcana?
Okay. Web3 game. Yeah, there is actually a lot of cool games. I love it. Everyone is evolving. But I would say my favorite is a Talk Drift. Yeah, it's actually a very cool game. It is also an Animoca ecosystem, as so
We're all the family here.
absolutely.
What's your favorite NFT collection?
NFT collection. That's a good question. Look, I'm a more simple person in that. So from the day one, when I have seen Azuki, actually I love Azuki collection, the design, the PFPs, and obviously there is another one after that, which I love not less than Azuki's, meaning I love their approach. They have big plans, big ecosystem approach. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because I know a lot of information. So Mochaverse, of course.
So see, both are very good, strong IP play.
Exactly.
There's a pattern here, guys.
Yeah.
Not financial advice. What is your dinner plan?
Dinner plan. That's a good question. Well, actually, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're both big guys.
Yes, yes.
So my plan is try to change it and have some rice with chicken and have my diet.
So you're gonna eat. So this guy eats rice for when he's dieting, he even eats rice. All right, Slam. It was a pleasure hosting you, and I look forward to the order.
Thank you for having me, Mehdi. Always pleasure.